Half arms, one broken man. The most dangerous animal in motorsport. You want to talk about MotoGP 2026? Fine, let's go. But first, sit with what happened at Le Mans. Don't process it as just another injury update. Don't let it slide into the feed and disappear. If you do that, you'll miss what's actually happening. And what's actually happening is one of the most alarming, beautiful, terrifying things this sport has ever produced. Marc Marquez, 9-time world champion, the most decorated motorcycle racer of the modern era, a man who has cheated death more times than most people have changed careers, sat inside the Ducati garage at Le Mans with tears cutting down his face, a broken screw inside his shoulder pressing against his radial nerve, arm misfiring on and off like a blown fuse, and looked his team in the eye and said it straight, "I'm riding with 1.5 arms. Stop. Don't rush past it. Let that sit in your chest and do damage." 1.5 arms. Not metaphorically. Not for drama. Literally. The radial nerve, the one controlling 3 fingers and the entire right arm, compressed by a fragment of screw that shifted during his crash at Indonesia 2025, when Marco Bezzecchi clipped him on lap 1 and quietly rewired everything. On and off, the nerve misfires. On and off, the arm goes weak. On and off, in the middle of a MotoGP corner at 200 kilometers per hour, the most important arm of the most dangerous rider on the planet becomes unreliable, random, and absent when he needs it most. And with that arm, he went out at Le Mans in Q1 and broke the lap record. Let that eat your soul. The record, the confession, the revelation. Here is what should haunt every other rider on this grid right now. Not the surgery, not the tears. What should destroy their sleep is the sequence. At Le Mans, Marquez lands in Q1, not Q2, Q1, the session you're in when the weekend is fighting you. And he doesn't just post a time, he obliterates the existing Le Mans lap record, sets a benchmark that silenced the paddock. A lap delivered with a screw grinding against his nerve, 3 fingers fading in and out of sensation, an arm that could cut out at any corner with 0 warning. Hours later, in the sprint, he high-sides massively, breaks a bone in his foot, declared unfit. And then, only then, sitting in the garage surrounded by his team, he finally opens the wound. I asked to keep it a secret. I wanted to go through the weekend without thinking about it. That single line is everything you need to understand about Marc Marquez as a competitor and predator. He didn't tell his crew because he wanted no special treatment, no narrative, no excuses, no story. Just racing, broken, in silence, alone against the pain, and let the results speak for themselves. And while carrying all of that, he was still the fastest man at Le Mans on a single qualifying lap. So the question isn't how bad the injury is. The question is what happens when it's gone. The blood count. Context is everything. And the context here is biblical. 2020, Jerez. He destroys his right humerus in one of the most savage crashes the sport has seen. 3 surgeries that same year. The plate from the first operation breaks. 2nd surgery. Then the bone gets infected and won't heal. 3rd surgery. He returns in 2021, wins 3 races, but the arm is never truly right. 2022, still at Honda, still fighting. A high side at round 2 brings back diplopia. Then after the Italian GP, he makes the most brutal call of his career, travels to the Mayo Clinic in the USA for a 4th surgery where doctors literally re-break his arm and rotate it 30 degrees externally before rebuilding it from scratch. Misses 6 rounds, returns at Aragon, finishes P2 in Australia. Another year half-eaten by the operating table. 2023, the wheels fall off completely. Hand injury at the season opener, 3 races missed. Then the Sachsenring, one of his favorite tracks, a circuit he has won at 9 times, and he crashes 5 times in a single weekend. Flips the bike in frustration. The Honda is dying under him, and there is nothing left to salvage. He announces his departure in an emotional press conference in Indonesia. 11 years with Honda, 6 titles. Done. 2024, he walks into Gresini, a satellite team on a year-old GP23 Ducati, reportedly for almost no salary. Walks away from tens of millions in Honda money for a bike he believes in. He is right. Wins 3 races. His first victory in 1,043 days comes at Aragon. Finishes the year 3rd in the championship behind Jorge Martin, who takes the title, and Bagnaia. By mid-season, Ducati has seen enough. They sign him to the factory team for 2025, famously pushing Martin out the door to Aprilia in the process. 2025, factory Ducati, 11 wins, clinches the World Championship in Japan, his 9th title, his first on a Ducati, one of the greatest comebacks the sport has ever witnessed. And then, 1 week later, one single week after becoming champion, Indonesia, Bezzecchi clips him on lap 1, the same circuit where he announced he was leaving Honda 2 years earlier. A screw shifts inside the shoulder. He misses the rest of the 2025 season and returns in 2026, carrying that invisible damage into every single lap. 71 points behind the championship leader, with a broken man. The threat has a name. Let's talk about Marco Bezzecchi, the man leading the 2026 World Championship, the same man involved in the crash that moved a screw into Marquez's nerve. Bezzecchi rides brilliantly. He's consistent, confident, dangerous. He deserves every point he holds, and he should be sleeping terribly right now, because he is 71 points ahead of a Marc Marquez who couldn't fully use his right arm. Let that fraction of information work on you. The man you have a cushion over was riding into fast corners unable to push the front, was generating crashes he himself couldn't explain, was lapping half a second below his own ceiling, was managing a secret injury so severe he had already booked surgery before the crash at Le Mans forced everything forward. 71 points. When Marquez returns, screw removed, nerve freed, both arms firing. What does that number look like? What does the championship look like when the most relentless competitor in the sport's history comes back with months of invisible pain to repay, and that number branded on the back of his skull? The championship hasn't started. It starts when he gets back. Gigi Dall'Igna and what he knows. Watch the garage footage. Watch Gigi Dall'Igna's face, one of the coldest, most analytical engineering minds in motorsport history. The man who built the most dominant motorcycle this era has seen. He doesn't flinch. He listened to Marquez describe the nerve, the screw, the failing arm, the kept secret. He said surgery is right. Health comes first. Warm words from an engineering mind. But what he knows, what everyone in that garage knows, is what a fully healthy Marc Marquez looks like on this motorcycle. They saw it in 2025, 11 wins, a championship, and now they sit with the knowledge that the 2026 Marquez, setting records and taking sprint wins, was doing all of it while one arm was effectively offline. The bike is the best on the grid. The rider, when whole, is the best on the grid. Put them together at full capacity with vengeance as the fuel, and this stops being a motorcycle race. It becomes something else entirely. The Bagnaia variable. Pecco Bagnaia is not invisible in this conversation. Two-time world champion, Marc's teammate, riding alone at Catalunya this weekend while his teammate goes under the knife. Brilliant, consistent, dangerous. He deserves to be called a champion every single day. And quietly, he is watching one of the most uncomfortable truths in racing gather itself across the garage. Because even broken, even one arm down, Marquez was still competitive enough to share the same machinery and still threaten. When Marquez returns whole, the battle doesn't just happen between him and the standings. It lives inside the garage, every weekend. Same bike, 2 champions. One of them running on something that isn't hunger anymore. It's closer to reckoning. Bagnaia is a champion, but he has never had a teammate assembled from this material. The question that ends all arguments. If a man with a broken screw compressing his radial nerve, with 3 fingers losing sensation mid-corner, with an arm that cuts out precisely when cornering forces peak. If that man walks into Q1 at Le Mans and breaks the circuit lap record, then what in God's name happens when he comes back with both arms working? What happens when he lines up healthy with a score to settle, with months of silent pain converted into forward momentum, with 44 points to claw back and the best motorcycle in the world beneath him? What happens when the man who rebuilt himself from shattered bone and operating tables and 4 surgeries and a Honda that was killing his career, when that man returns into a season that still breathes, still lives, still belongs to whoever wants it most? The answer is not a prediction. It is a warning. Marquez didn't break down in that garage because he was weak. He broke down because he had been impossibly strong for too long, carrying too much, in silence, while the world watched and tried to explain why the reigning champion was underperforming. The tears were not surrender. They were the exhale of a man who had been holding his breath for months. The surgery is not at the ending of his 2026. It is the loading screen. When he comes back, and he will, because stopping is a concept that lives in other people's biology, not his, he will return into a championship still alive, onto a machine, still the fastest thing on tarmac, with a body that finally functions and a mind forged by every lap of invisible agony he rode in complete silence. God help them when he's whole.